Yeah, good morning and a very warm welcome to Virtual Vienna, a comprehensive approach through Sequent. My name is Ingrid Pleschberger. I'm the head of the International Office at the University of Applied Sciences BFI Vienna, and I will guide you through the event today. Before we start with the official program, I want to thank everyone for their interest. We have participants from all over the world today, working in different areas of higher education. And it is great to welcome so many people who are committed to internationalization and quality, especially in times when all of our focus is probably more health and safety related. I have two important announcements for the setting of today's event. We very much invite you to interact with us. Therefore, please use the chat function to post questions and comments. If you have not used the chat function in Zoom before, you find the chat button below on your screen. If you have any questions related to the presentation and discussions or the content of this event, please post your questions in the chat. However, in the meantime, we would ask you to keep your microphones switched off. Please also be aware that we are recording this event for documentation, and we will publish the recording on our website. If you want to post questions anonymously, you can change your username. You do so by clicking on participants, and then you should be able to see your user on the right side of the screen. And then by clicking on your username, you can change it. In case you need technical support, you can contact my colleague, Stefan Wengle. He will answer technical questions. Maybe Stefan, you can just say hi in the chat briefly so that people know how to approach you. This event was originally planned as a full-day conference for April 2020, but due to the coronavirus situation, we decided to first postpone and then switch to an online format. As you can imagine, it will hardly be possible to pack the content of a whole day into 2 hours, since we are taking screen fatigue very seriously. And therefore, what we will discuss and present today is more meant as a teaser to hopefully, in the near future, physical events happening in Vienna and at our university. After our session, you will also receive a link to a short questionnaire where we would invite you to share your perspectives on future events, things that might interest you, information you would like to receive with us. For the structure of today that you can see right now, we will have 2 keynotes about the Sequent approach to internationalization and 2 breakout sessions where experts with different backgrounds who have extensive experience in internationalization and quality management at higher education institutions will give you firsthand insights into the ideas and the processes of the Certificate for Quality in Internationalization, also known as Sequent, what I've been speaking about already. And then in our final plenary, we will address questions from the audience and discuss various topics around internationalization, quality, and Sequent. So we highly appreciate your participation and interaction. Please really share your ideas and thoughts with us. I think this is a good point to just jump right in with the opening statements of our rector and vice president of the Austrian Association of Universities of Applied Sciences, Andreas Feinbauer, and our managing director, Eva Schüssel-Vorgensteiner. Please, Andreas and Eva, switch your cameras and microphones on. The virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, dear Ingrid, for the kind introduction. Dear international partners, dear speakers and colleagues, the internationalization and quality enthusiasts all over the world, a warm welcome. It's my honor to welcome you to our event, Internationalization and Quality, a comprehensive approach.
Andreas, I'm sorry for interrupting you. I think your camera is not on me.
Oh, thank you, sorry.
Perfect, thank you.
Now, okay. It's my honor to welcome you to our event, Internationalization and Quality, a comprehensive approach through Sequent. For those who are not familiar with the system of the Austrian University of Applied Sciences, a few comments. Internationalization is an essential cornerstone of Austrian Universities of Applied Sciences, We are a relatively young sector, and internationalization is embedded in the DNA of universities of applied sciences from beginning on, through successful implementation of the Bologna process. We were the early mover in the tertiary sector in Austria. We have partnerships all around the globe, and we are a successful player in Erasmus Plus with mobility all over the world and with successful partnerships. Internationalization is embedded in teaching, learning, as well as in research. And internationalization at home, especially for our part-time students who face barriers in going abroad, is widely implemented. Around 1 year ago, our institution, the University of Applied Sciences, BFI Vienna, went through a strategic development process where we screened and critically reflect on our university's internationalization strategy. This process was significantly influenced and guided by the framework of the Certificate for Quality in Internationalization, also known as SEQUINT. Almost at the same time, the Austrian Ministry for Education, Science and Research started to form a working group to develop a national strategy of mobility and internationalization for higher education, which was presented last week during the Erasmus Plus Hochschultagung. I consider the new path that there were taken in the development of those strategies is the beginning of a paradigm shift. For many years, the level of internationalization at higher education institutions could almost be equated with the number of students who go abroad. But especially for universities of applied sciences that focus on students who are already employed and often study besides having a full-time job, families like at our university, where nearly 2/3 of all students are studying part-time, a broader approach than physical mobility is needed. The idea of what internationalization at higher education institution is comprised of is changing now, creating new and more holistic perspectives towards teaching and learning and its international activity. I'm very much looking forward to our discussions and the dialogue today. Thank you for joining us. I wish you a very interesting 2 hours. And now let me hand over to our Managing Director, Eva Schissel-Fockensteiner. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andreas. A warm welcome also from my side to all of you here in the virtual room of the University of Applied Sciences in the heart of Vienna. Recent events like the outbreak of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic or acts of radicalization show us that the challenges of our future have a global scope. They certainly need global solutions. And that is what we want our graduates to be part of. We see it as our responsibility as a university to facilitate intercultural dialogue and make international and intercultural experiences possible for all our students and staff members. Our university already promotes a European perspective, starting with the first degree program in the late 90s. It was called or is called European Economy and Business Management. By 2020, we run now 2 bachelor and 3 master programs in English, which encourages also, but not only, a lot of international students to come to Vienna and study at our university. As 2/3 of all our students, as Andreas already stated, work and study at the same time, they often do not have the possibility to participate in traditional and often resource-intensive activities, such as physical long-term mobility. Therefore, we strongly promote internationalization at home activities and complement our internationalization goals with specific and individual objectives relevant for our degree programs. To make a long story short, we want all our students and staff members to further develop their international and intercultural competencies. we found in Sequint a fitting instrument to help us getting better on this road, and I'm happy that we can share information and experiences and discuss with you today about it. The organization of this event would not have been possible without the support and initiatives of our partners. Special thanks goes to the City of Vienna, EMMA 23, and the Bologna Service Point of the Austrian National Agency, who are partly funding this event. The International Committee of the Austrian Association of Universities of Applied Sciences and their chair, Elisabeth Brunner-Sobansky, the European Consortium for Accreditation in Higher Education, all speakers who will be introduced individually during the course of this event by Ingrid Pleschberger, namely Maciej Makovsky, Eva Werner, Aisling Tirnan, and Paul Weil, I hope I got all them right, and Jürgen Petersen, the General Manager of the Agency for Accreditation and Quality Assurance, Austria. Last but not least, today's technical support, Stefan Lengle, and Ingrid Pleschberger, the head of the International Department, who was organizing, coordinating, and moderating today's event. Thank you very much for that, Ingrid, and I now hand over the microphone to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eva. And both of you, Eva and Andreas, for your welcome words. I find them very motivating. One of our actually special guests today is Dr. Jürgen Petersen, who is the General Manager of the Agency for Accreditation and Quality Assurance Austria. Dr. Petersen, thank you very much for joining us today. Would you please be so kind as to activate your camera and microphone and also share your perspective on today's topic with us?
Okay, I hope both of it is activated. One can see and hear me. If not, please say so. So thank you also. Okay, thanks. Okay, so I guess I have like about 10 minutes, and I will start with a warm welcome to all of you, and thank you for having me on this web conference today. Special thanks to Eva Werner for inviting me and reminding me on the invitation, and also on when we shifted this event, for kind of re-inviting me, and hello to all friends and colleagues from ECA. It's good to have you here, at least online, if not really in person today. I will use my few minutes to think a bit, or give you some ideas about the relationship between quality and internationalization. And I have kind of two things I would dwell on a little bit. The one is, of course, as has been mentioned before, kind of internationalization in the times of a pandemic, COVID-19. And the other one is a bit about, well, like the relationship between internationalization, quality, and the quality of internationalization. I would also call it the good, the bad, and the ugly. Well, to start with, I think it's impossible not to mention the current circumstances when we talk about internationalization. I guess we have kind of very international panel here today. In all of your countries, you have maybe the same or similar experience in the last few months. And when it comes to higher education, when it comes to quality assurance, there's a lot of sometimes very short-term changes you had to do. When you're from higher education institutions, you had a lot of changes, very much ad hoc, especially in the first half of this year. And also from our side, from AQ Austria, we had the same challenges that we have to like change all the site visits, all the procedures, decision procedures, and so on. So it's a really difficult time for all of us, I know. And when you now think about internationalization in these times, first of all, you think about the negative impact that COVID-19 has. Of course, there's restrictions on personal mobility. I guess it's kind of a total lockdown of anyone that would go abroad and cannot go back, or it's incoming, it's outgoing. I think that's not something you can do these days. Really, it's really not a possibility. I think there are also some other forms of restrictions. Of course, you have not only for students, but also for researchers, for staff, for academic staff, non-academic staff. You have a lot of international conferences that were skipped, or that were just like in a virtual format, and we all know that these are sometimes very effective formats, but you also lose a lot of things that you have kind of in regular conferences, meetings, and so on. You lose the personal ones, you lose the sometimes some types of communication, and so on. And I guess, and this might be the most dangerous things, there's also a shift in priorities. Of course, everyone has to rechange, teaching and learning formats, go to digital formats, try to adapt programs. In Austria, I know it's especially difficult for programs that have a lot of like practice related parts of it, like in medicine or in healthcare, etc. It's very difficult to organize internships and so on. So this is kind of, I sometimes I would guess that like internationalization is not a hot topic like than it was like a year ago, and it's just a little bit step back in terms of priorities that higher education institutions have. On the other hand, I would say, of course, where there is restrictions, there are also opportunities. Of course, there are new formats. There is digital learning, hybrid learning, whatever. So you have, as far as I can see it, sometimes kind of a renaissance of MOOCs again, kind of these types of maybe informal learning, micro-learning, micro-credentials, and so on. So you have to think about internationalization in a different way, more about curricula, more about internationalization at home, different types of exchanges, different formats, and so on. And I think I would say that after the pandemic, whenever that will be, we will have some innovative ideas that will be sustainable for the future to come. And maybe this is also related to internationalization, and maybe less priority on this kind of personal mobility that we all know, but more on different, more innovative forms of internationalization. So there are, I think, some pros and some cons in these situations, and we should all like try to do the best with it that we can. Second topic, internationalization and quality. And now I try a little bit of kind of multimedia. I don't know if it's possible to hear that. I would call it the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, as you all know, there are different perspectives to think about internationalization and quality, and then quality assurance. I think we all know that kind of the traditional way to think about it is that if you have a high quality higher education institutions with mostly English speaking programs, with top-notch research activities, highly connected worldwide, then you are attractive. You have a lot of incoming students, researchers, staff. You are very well connected worldwide. So this is kind of the way to think about quality and internationalization, that if you have a high quality in teaching and learning, in research, whatever, your libraries and so on, your laboratories, then you will have kind of a high profile in internationalization because you're attractive. I guess it's kind of the traditional way to think about internationalization and quality. The more modern way would be to think about the other way around. It's kind of internationalization as a means to an end, and the end is quality. So by internationalization, you get a better quality of teaching and learning, of higher education, of research, and so on. Of course, this is also then the other way around. If you have a high quality, then you also become more attractive. So this is the basic, I think, the basic relationship you can think in either way about quality and internationalization. So what about the good, the bad, and the ugly? When you look at different levels of internationalizations, I would say, and I would propose, and maybe we can talk about that later, that not all internationalization is substantially good, and not all internationalization really produces a higher quality. So when you look at it, kind of three different levels: at the personal, the institutional, and then maybe the systemic or national level, for example, in Austria. I would always say that on all of these levels, internationalization can have a good quality, can enhance quality, but it could also be kind of a bad experience, or it can also be kind of an ugly experience. So of course, just to give you a few examples of what I mean with this. When you look at the personal level, so personal mobility or studying in an internationalized, multicultural settings, diverse academic staff, a curriculum that is very keen on intercultural competencies and so on. So you gain a lot. You gain a lot of competences if it's a good program, experience if you go abroad, personal experience, academic experience, and so on. This is a good side. Of course, you can also have kind of, or let's say, bad experience or worse experience. Of course, kind of mobility can be difficult to organize. Maybe it's difficult to get settled in another academic context. Maybe if you're a researcher, you go abroad and you cannot do your research that you were planned to do. You get no access to laboratories and so on. If you go back as a student, recognition is a problem because it's too bureaucratic, too restricted, and so on. It can also get ugly, actually. So it can you go abroad, for example, as a student, you can get totally lost. You can never find a hold in the academic programs. Well, I don't know, socially isolated, whatever. Can be difficult. Can get ugly. If you look into the institutional level, of course, you can have internationalization in a good quality. So you have an institution, and that was stated at the beginning, that really has an interest in internationalization, really has international cooperation, Erasmus agreements, research connections worldwide. You have a staff exchange, you have a diverse staff, and so on. It can also be kind of a less good quality, of course. I don't have to go into that. And it can also be kind of ugly again. So it's just like internationalization. It's just more or less like kind of a lip service. It's something that you propose to do, but you're not really interested in. You do not really support your staff, your students to go abroad, and so on. So on the last level, and then I'm nearly finished with my few minutes. If you look at the systemic level and the national one, this is something we also at AQ Austria, we look very closely in the beginning, at the moment, sorry, not the beginning, at the moment. Of course, there are a lot of positive impacts of internationalization. If Austrian higher education institutions are becoming more international, they were quite successful now at the European Universities Initiative, for example. Then you have a lot of positive effects also on the higher education system in total, on the society in general. It gets an open society, which is really important these days. On the bad side, it can also be can be kind of a window dressing, telling everyone that you put a lot of money in internationalization strategies, you support internationalization, but this is not really something that changes in mind. There's no culture of internationalization at higher education institutions. And the ugly, last but not least, you can also, like, internationalization can get really detrimental. There can be some offerings I just mentioned, like cross-border higher education, franchising, also kind of, you can start to set up kind of degree mills that just sell like international academic degrees that are not really worth anything. You pay money for that, but you don't get any kind of quality in education, for example, back on that. So these are maybe these kind of three levels I was thinking about that you can think about quality, the relationship between quality and internationalization. And so to conclude, well, I would say that Sequit is kind of a tool to really think about and work on this relationship between quality in higher education, maybe also in research, maybe on a broader level. To think about this relationship between quality and higher education on different levels, at least, of course, kind of the personal level, also on the institutional level of programs. And so I hope that Sequent can be kind of one part and one tool to enhance the quality, kind of to strengthen the good quality of internationalization, to better the things that are not that good, the bad ones, and like to exterminate the ugly impact of internationalization. So I'm looking forward for the next like 1.5 hours. Thank you for having me here. Sorry for being a bit over time. And back to Ingrid.
Thank you very much, Dr. Peterson, for your thoughts and the points you raised. I truly hope that we can really get out the ugly of internationalization. But I think it's very really important points that you made, and it's definitely not everything is positive about internationalization. I agree with that. Before I now introduce our first speaker, our first keynote speaker, I want to highlight again that you are all very much invited to share your thoughts and raise questions in the chat. We will screen through them and do our best to address them, especially during the final plenary, but also before if we manage because of our time constraints. So our first speaker today is Maciej Makovsky. Please, Maciej, activate your microphone and your camera. Maciej is International Policy Advisor at the Polish Accreditation Committee. He is also Chair of the Board of the European Consortium for Accreditation in Higher Education, also known as ECA, and Chair of the Certification Group of the ECA, which is responsible for methodological and strategic development of the Certificate for Quality in Internationalization. Please, Maciej, I assume that there are some participants today who have not much experience with Sequent. Tell us more about Sequent and its approach towards internationalization of higher education.
Of course, welcome. Thank you very much, Ingrid. First of all, before I begin, I would definitely like to thank you and organizers and University of Applied Sciences BFI Vienna for hosting this event, for inviting all of us here, and inviting Sequent to your institution, and so that we are able to share our methodology and our experience with Sequent with you. I would definitely like to thank also Ms. Eva Werner for, first of all, being with Sequent from the very beginning and being a good spirit within Sequent and supporting the organization of this event. Thank you very much for the leadership of the University of Applied Sciences in Vienna for your very interesting welcome speeches, and Dr. Jürgen Petersen. It's really great to see you, Jürgen, again. So let me jump into the topic. It's also very important for me to say that this is the first time that I'm able to publicly use our new Sequent logo, since we are now going through a little bit of rebranding of the Sequent. So I hope that this new logo will attract your attention and you will like it. So let me jump into the main topic of my presentation. So what is Sequent and what does it stand for? Before I will jump to that, let me first shortly introduce my organization that stands behind the SEQUINT. ECA stands for European Consortium for Accreditation in Higher Education. It's an organization established in 2003 as a project-based organization, and we currently have 17 members from which are quality assurance agencies from 11 European higher education area countries, plus 2 observers from outside Europe, outside this area. Our main vision is to become and be internationally recognized as a driver for innovation and quality assurance. We have some experience in that area. Maybe some of you heard and know the methodology for the European approach to quality assurance of joint program. We are very happy to actually share the experience that was the foundation for this European approach that came from one of our projects. But the main topic today, and this is something that we are also very proud of, is that we have developed within our organization the methodology for evaluating and rewarding the quality in internationalization. So let me first dig in, how do we actually understand internationalization? And as Jürgen already mentioned, there's lots of different layers to internationalization, lots of different issues to cover here. But I think that the most important, and how do we understand, is actually, it was phrased by Hans de Wit back in 2015, based, of course, on multiple different definitions before that. And of course, based on Professor de Wit's contribution and engagement in the SEQUINT project before that. So first of all, we do understand internationalization as intentional process, which is quite important, as you will see later on, of integrating international, intercultural, and global dimension in order to enhance the quality of education and research for the student, staff, and of course, to make a meaningful contribution to society. I have highlighted a couple of really important words to understand the methodology behind it, since based on this definition, we have developed the framework and the whole methodology, which I will say a few words about a bit later on. So, so this is how we understand internationalization. This is how we will work with internationalization within the SEQUINT. A few words about the SEQUINT. As I said, as I already mentioned, the SEQUINT stands for Certificate for Quality in Internationalization. It's a methodology that is officially developed within the EU-funded project before Erasmus Plus program. So it was a project that the ECA, together with the members and the partners, carried out between 2012-2015, and based on the idea for methodology for the evaluating and identifying distinctive quality feature internationalization that has been active and developed more or less around 2010 by NVAO, which is a Dutch and Flemish accreditation organization, one of ECA's founding members. So based on that methodology that has been developed and tested in the Netherlands and Flanders, ECA has taken it to the European level and developed the framework that can be applied all over Europe and beyond, since we have some experience with applying also SEQUINT outside the European higher education area as well. The primary purpose behind SEQUINT is, of course, the demonstration and the recognition of successful implementation of the internationalization activities, which, as I mentioned before that, contribute and enhance and have a meaningful impact on the quality of teaching and learning. So since we are working with the connection between the quality and internationalization, we would like to see an internationalization as an impactful factor of to increase and enhance the quality of teaching and learning. So how do we do that? Within Sequint, we have two working frameworks. The first is the program framework and the institutional framework, which will be shown in just about now, exactly. So as I already mentioned, in both frameworks, what's the most important is that we work with the intention. That is why at the very beginning we ask what are your goals, what is your intention behind your internationalization, and in the at the program level we ask for intended internationalization that is then translated into intended international intercultural learning outcomes that are crucial for a specific program that is evaluated or that is enhanced. How those intended intercultural learning outcomes translate into the teaching and learning practices. What kind of methodologies do you use? How do you evaluate whether you have whether those are achieved? How the staff and the students work within your intended internationalization goals and the learning outcomes. How is your staff prepared to support students in achievement of those intended learning outcomes in the area of international and intercultural competencies and skills? How this process is supported, how your students are supported, how your staff is supported in become, let's say, more proficient and more effective in achieving those learning outcomes through, of course, teaching and learning as a process. In the end, and as a last dimension of the program framework, we ask and would like to see how those all those activities that and how all those previous dimensions, starting from the expression of your intention, internationalization goals, internationalization, intended learning outcomes, teaching and learning practices, staff and student support and composition and competencies, of course, how are they translated into the final achievement of the international intercultural learning outcomes, and how does that support your quality goals and increase and enhance your quality. This is why I would like to, I think that this is a really nice visualization of the framework as a logical scheme that goes through the whole process and every step of the process of the quality, the establishing and developing the quality within the study program. So basically, our basic intention is to see and to evaluate whether your intentions have been achieved within the program through the meaningful actions at the teaching and learning level, students and staff. Moving on to the institutional framework, again, we begin with your intended internationalization at your institutional level. And here it is important to recognize that depending on the context, the institution can mean the whole higher education institution, or for instance, the faculty or any other part that has a substantiate, let's say, autonomy within the institution that can develop and execute and have the internationalization strategy and internationalization goals behind it. So basically, first of all, at the institution level, our point of reference and our starting point is the intended internationalization at the institution level. We would like to see what is your strategy, what stands behind your goals, how do you phrase your goals, and whether they are translated later on into the feasible action plans that can be implemented and can be executed at every level and every program in your institution. That's of course at the institution level. We work with the complexity of the institution. We work with every study program. We work with every aspect of of your institution, which is the education, research, and of course your impact to society and your relation with society. So we would like to see what are your goals in these areas, what are your action plans, how those goals are translated into action plans, and how these are implemented, whether we can see after that, after this implementation, and whether you can demonstrate. This is also very important that you, as an institution, as a program, can demonstrate the enhancement that is developed and it's achieved in enhancement in your quality of education, quality of research, quality of social interactions and social relations through the internationalization. So basically, all those 4 steps, 3 steps before, need to lead into enhancement. And one overarching aspect of institutional framework is the governance. So basically, we would like to ask, and the second framework ask question, how your governance structures and practices, which also, of course, include the research, proper allocation of resources of all kind, support your intended internationalization goals, action plans, implementation, and whether that leads to enhancement that can be demonstrated and can be evaluated at your institution by yourself, and so that both for yourself, for the institution, for your students, for your staff, and for the outside world, it is clear that through your intended internationalization, you achieve the enhancement of the quality in all types of your activities. So basically, these are 2 logical frameworks, the logical processes and frameworks that we developed based on our understanding of internationalization definition and internationalization as we understand it, as we would like to see the impact of the internationalization on the quality at the program and at the institutional level. Within today's event, we will have 2 great practitioners at the institutional level. So I hope that within the breakout sessions, you will be able to learn more about their experience, Aisling Tinan and Paul Wheel, that both experience Sequint at the institutional level. So I hope that there will be more questions and more interactions at the breakout sessions. Also, if you would like to have any further discussion about those frameworks, you have any questions, please feel free to ask any question now or later on in later contact. We'll be very happy to answer that. Finishing my presentation, I would just like to share a bit more about our experience with Sequint. Currently, we have awarded 44 certificates. A couple of new ones are still in the due process. Most of them are are awarded at the program level. Some of them are awarded in the institutional level. It's quite, let's say, I wouldn't like to say easy, but I think that it's regarding the internationalization, the program level is somehow more appealing for the institution to begin with Sequint. So I think that this is why there are more certificates awarded at the program level than institutional level. All of this that I have just briefly introduced, because there is, of course, much more into that, we have put into our publications and our methodological guidebooks that you can find on our webpage. And if you also like to receive them, or you will not be able to find them, please contact me or contact our ECA secretariat. So that will be it from my side. Thank you very much, and I hope that it was informative. Ingrid, coming back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maciej. Actually, we have a question from the chat, and I think we have 2 more minutes to post it. Lisbeth Adriansen I hope I got this correctly, asks, does the framework for institutional level aim at recognition only, or can it be used as a tool for feedback and growth? How would you?
Of course, I think that's the second framework serves both of those purposes. Since the framework is more of a descriptive, non-prescriptive, this is why I think it's a very good starting point for putting your internationalization practices into some kind of methodological framework for your internal purposes, where you can use it for your internal feedback and sending up your internal developmental growth. But also what is very important is that what we do during the external quality assurance and external evaluation of your internationalization practices based on the second framework. Of course, we provide, and every panel and every quality assurance agency that uses the second framework provides the meaningful feedback and recommendations, suggestions for the further development of your internationalization practices that would be fit for your institution. So I hope that that addresses the question.
Thank you very much, Maciej. And I would actually really like to continue directly with our next speaker, who is the former rector of IMC University of Applied Sciences Krems, Eva Werner. Please, Eva, switch on your microphone and camera. Eva is currently Bologna expert in internationalization, and participates in a variety of quality reviews and audits of higher education institutions. She is also a trained Sequent auditor and was involved in the development phase of the certification. And she's specifically passionate about internationalization, teaching and learning, and quality enhancement. Welcome, Eva. Please tell us more about how Sequent can support higher education institutions in enhancing internationalization of teaching and learning.
Thank you, Ingrid. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. And ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues from Austria and from abroad, it's my pleasure to welcome you to my presentation and focus a little bit more on what Sequent actually is about, and particularly with a view to what was the last comment, how is it also feedback and can it also be used within the institution. Maybe that's something that you will hear from me. You have already heard from Dr. Peterson and also from Maciej. Don't worry, I think coming from education, repetition is reinforcement, and I probably bring in a different view as well. So when you have a look at my presentation, the title here goes, how can it help, how can it support Austrian higher education institutions? And I put into brackets Austrian because this is due to the fact, as Andreas Breinbauer already mentioned in the beginning, last week the Austrian National Mobility and Internationalization Strategy was published. And so many Austrian higher education institutions probably ask now, how can we start, how can we do in order to implement that strategy? And to my opinion, and it is my conviction that, and I think Dr. Peterson already mentioned this, Sequent can really be helpful in implementing a national strategy. And if I look here are many countries that already have such a national strategy. So the question, internationalization and quality, was already raised by Dr. Peterson, and he very nicely elaborated on that. I would like to add another thought to that. It is neither a dilemma nor a paradoxon, and it is definitely not a question not to answer. If you look at what Maciej has already presented to you, if you look at internationalization as a process that embraces the entire institution, then you probably agree that the process needs a quality framework in order to see if this works together. And in this understanding, I think that internationalization and quality are a perfect match and fit together very, very well. So coming back to Sequent, what is special about Sequent? And Maciej already mentioned some issues, and I would like to point once again to the most important three issues of Sequent. It starts with the internationalization goals of an institution. So not like many other quality assurance frameworks, it starts by asking you, do you have a mission? Do you have a strategy? What is this all about? But Sequent starts and says, well, what is your intention that you want to achieve via internationalization? And how do you link these intentions to the policy and to the objectives and to the goals of your institution? The second point is that starting from this institutional perspective, all the perspectives filtering into the programs have to be seen and have to be referenced to. So the sequence standards plus the goals of the institution are always put into reference. And the third point, which is very, very important, is Sequent leaves room for the context-oriented approach to internationalization. Each program, each institution operates within a specific range of context, and Sequent does value this specific context. There is no one-size-fits-all approach in this framework, but it asks, so what is the context in which you operate? What are the limitations that you have? And nevertheless, how do you get along? So Sequent actually leaves room for a subject-oriented approach, but it leaves also room for different speeds unless the direction of the entire institution and also of the programs goes into the same way. So one could say that Sequent starts with a totally changed perspective. It is not the standard that prescribes the way, but it is the institution that actually explains the why, the what's, the how, the what for, and the who. So Sequent asks the why. Why do you want to internationalize? What is the rationale behind? And how does your strategy and your policy link to these goals? It also asks for the what. What actually do you want to achieve? And how does it fit together with the strategy or with the goals that you have in mind? It asks for the how. How are you going to do that? How are you going to achieve this? And very, very important, it asks for the impact. What is the impact on teaching and learning? What is the impact on your students, on the staff? What is the impact on the institution? And if I say, what is the impact on teaching and learning, we do not only look at teaching and learning in the sense of just courses and learning outcomes for the courses. We look at teaching and learning from a broader sense. And this broader sense is what is known as internationalization of the curriculum, which comprises the curriculum, the formal curriculum, the informal curriculum, but also the environment of an institution. So this is very, very important to bear in mind. And of course, Sequent also asks for the who actually takes ownership of this process, who supports, who steers the whole thing. And if I talk about who, I would like to mention one thing. It is not the international office alone that is responsible for internationalization. It is always an institutional commitment that has to be shown and demonstrated. So, to continue this, I would like to mention that one could say that Sequent actually acknowledges that it is the institution that writes the roadmap of the whole process. And Sequent, as the framework for quality in internationalization, can act as the navigation system to this travel. And finally, if you look at the standards and at the substandards, these are the travel stops, but this also indicates the destination where you have to go to. In other words, one could say, now, if you ask the question, how does Sequent support the higher education institutions? And here again, I would like to focus on the definition that Maciej has already given and that I repeated in the beginning. If you look at internationalization at the intentional process of integrating the different domains of internationalization at all levels of your institution, then it can help the higher education institutions to understand internationalization as a comprehensive process. And this is so important to recognize. And furthermore, it helps the institutions to understand what we call the comprehensive approach or comprehensive internationalization. So for those among you who are not too familiar with the topic or the term of comprehensive internationalization, here is a very concise definition of this. And the most important sentence is just at the end: comprehensive internationalization aims at touching the entire higher education institution, and it infuses all levels of the institution with the internationalization aspects and with international domains. So if you look at the different items that comprehensive internationalization actually comprises, and if you couple this with the standards of SEQUENT, then you can see that you find everything both in the standards, but also in the comprehensive approach to internationalization. And this is why these two actually are also a perfect match. Now, one could also say that SEQUENT helps you to paint the big picture that is called internationalization. And it is the framework that's to your picture. If you can look here, this would be SEQUENT as the frame to your picture. And within the picture, you have the goals, you have the strategic setting, you have the ambition of the institution, you have the commitment of the involvement of everyone. You have the objectives, you have students, you have staff, you have teaching and learning, the environment and everything. So that is a huge picture framed by the standard of SEQUENT. To put it in a nutshell, how does SEQUENT help higher education institutions? It helps the institutions to reflect on the rationale, sit down together with your staff, with all stakeholders of your institution, and think of why do you want to internationalize, what do you want to achieve, and where do you want to go? And what do you do it for, and for whom do you do it? And how does everything that you intend to do contribute to the quality of teaching and learning, and what is the impact that is generated by what you are going to do? It helps you to reflect on the correspondence of your international and intercultural learning outcomes with the internationalization goals. There must be a linkage between these two. These cannot be separated at all. And it also helps you in the reflection of how by the end of the study period, the students and the graduates can demonstrate that they have actually achieved the intended competencies. Of course, it helps the institution in enhancing the competencies of students and staff. And finally, it also helps you to reflect on how international and intercultural experiences can be made. Is it by internationalization at home? Is it by physical, by virtual, by alternative mobility formats? Is it by collaborative online learning, or whatever format you can think of? Sit down and reflect how this can help to internationalize the institution and also the individual programs. So let me have a few words also on what auditors look at. We as auditors, we understand, as already mentioned, internationalization as an intentional process. So intentional meaning there has to be the commitment of the entire institution, of those who take ownership of this process. And we also recognize this is a multidimensional concept. It is not just a one-way issue. It is a multidimensional, multi-layer concept. And of course, we also recognize that any internationalization goals of an institution are strongly influenced by the context in which internationalization takes place, the context in which the institution operates, and also in the context in which the program actually is embedded. So as auditor, we want to understand the why, the what, and the how. And of course, we also want to know who takes ownership of this process and what do you do it for whom do you do it? Of course, when auditing an institution, we want to see the evidences of the impact on teaching and learning, on learning outcomes and on the competencies. And we would like to learn more about good practices and also how you do your quality monitoring. We want to get a sense of the internationalization culture. And those among you who come from Austrian institutions, you will recognize that in the new strategy, the internationalization culture is one of the aspects that is mentioned right at the beginning. So this is something that we as auditors want to sense when we come to an institution, and we also want to get a sense of the institutional commitment. And of course, a very important thing is we do not come as an examiner, we come as critical friends, focusing and looking at what you're doing, giving you input, giving you feedback, and helping you to enhance and to progress on the way towards internationalization. So just to sum up and to conclude in a nutshell, Sequent can help the institutions in the program to reflect on why to go, where to go, and how to go. It raises the awareness as to what contributes to internationalization. It fosters the comprehensive approach that I have mentioned for the entire institution. It considers, of course, students and staff. It considers teaching and learning and the entire teaching and institutional environment. And of course, it helps implementing national strategies, not only the Austrian one. As a final word, whenever you decide to go for Sequent, it is a group travel, and everybody has a share in reaching the final goal of internationalization as a comprehensive issue, as an institutional goal. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and we are looking forward to your questions that they will come up later on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eva. I think that was a very open insights also from your experience as an auditor, and that's probably very helpful for a lot of internationalization officers. I'm having a brief look into our chat. From what I see now, there are no urgent questions regarding your presentation. So I think we probably continue with introducing our speakers and hosts of the breakout sessions. So just from a technical perspective, to all the participants, you don't have to do anything to enter the breakout sessions. You already registered for the breakout session you wanted to choose when also registering for the event. It is now my pleasure to introduce our breakout session hosts, Aisling Tianan and Paul Wheel. Please, Aisling and Paul, could you activate your cameras and your microphones so that we can see you? Aisling will be hosting breakout room number 1 about the institutional perspective. She is a trained Sequent auditor and has been on both sides of the Sequent auditing process in practice. She managed the institution-wide certification for Maastricht University in 2018 and is passionate about internationalization, particularly the strategy and measurement and international benchmarking. She also works as a consultant, supporting institutions with strategy, policy, and quality-related projects. Maybe Aisling, maybe you can say hi so that we just get a...
Yeah, sure. Good morning, everybody. Yeah,
hi,
great. Hi.
And our second host is Paul Wheel. He will be hosting breakout room number 2 about the program perspective. Paul is currently the head of program internationalization at the Graduate Engineering and Research Institute in Saint-Étienne in the south of France. And he's the project manager for their Sequent certification. He is also a qualified auditor for both Sequent and for the new French national quality assurance label named Bienvenue en France. Maybe Paul, you can also say hello briefly so that everybody gets an image.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Ingrid. And you have a great French accent.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, so it's now 11:05. So Stefan, I would ask you to set the timer for our breakout session until 11:35, and everyone will basically be magically assigned to the breakout sessions they need to go to, and we can start that now.